All those in favour say aye. Opposed, that's carried. And this brings us to item 7, the Community Board's monthly reports. So I'd like to welcome the Waitai Coastal Burwood Linwood Community Board Chairperson Paul McMahon and Deputy Jackie Simons to come to the table and present your report, please. Marina.
Just looking at a few highlights that we've had in Waitai recently. We have microphone.
Yes, sorry, we do have Councillor Kewen on Zoom, so if we don't have our mics on, the people on Zoom can't hear.
That's fine. Sorry about that, Councillor Kewen. Looking at the Shared Kai and Kororo Linwood series, this was absolutely really brilliant. I attended a few of them. I waitressed at a couple of them. It reminded me of my youth. The food and the chat and the community vibe was very positive. So if you do have Shared Kai come to your community board area, then do get involved in that. It's a lot of fun. Pūtakitanga o Te Waipounamu had its 10-year anniversary. So that was a fun full day with food giveaways and activities. And also we now have a new share pantry and book exchange in Burwood, and that has come together because of local community members, St Paul's Lutheran Church and the Waitakere School. So those having a pantry there is going to be good for people in that community. And they would also like to thank Bunnings and the Warehouse Shirley, who provided supplies and things for that that pantry. Over to you, Paul.
And come to our issues, our advocacy issues. Firstly, Portlink is still there. One of the things about this issue and a lot of resource management issues is that residents do not feel that council is on their side. They feel held captive by moneyed interests who appear to be able to do what they want, with nobody to stand up for the public interest. But we are heartened that work has started on the plan change, but what I think is needed is an attitude change to compliance and enforcement on the residential industrial interface. Staff have been good on the Portlink latterly, but what we'd like to see is staunch advocacy from the get-go. Working class communities don't have the resources to stand up to moneyed interests on their own. They need their democratically elected council to act for the common good. And the wastewater treatment plant, it's still there, it still smells, and there's a level of frustration in the community with the delay that's quite significant, and the sooner we can give them clarity, the better. Too few people know that the concept design for the treatment filters is complete, that the further investigation and detailed design is underway with changes to modernise it. While most people in Christchurch know that dealing with insurers what it's like, they don't necessarily know that the council faces the same constraints as the rest of us. And finally, Pages Road Bridge. We need to get the Pages Road Bridge done. It's been 13 years since the earthquake. It's a major lifeline. It's the most important transport project in Canterbury as far as we're concerned, much more important than the Wood End bypass. And no design will be perfect, and nor will it make everyone happy. But it has gone through extensive pre-consultation, consultation, and through a hearings process. So I really urge you to support it, the recommendation of the hearings panel. We need to get this vital lifeline for New Brighton done. So thank you very much, and happy to take questions if you have any.
Thank you. You have left a minute and a half. Are there any questions? Councillor Donovan.
Thank you for that. Sorry, I'm just losing my voice a little bit. Are you able to just touch on the community board's view of the bridge in terms of the pre-consultation and the consultation process?
So when we went through, the board submitted in favour of the bridge as a majority. So obviously you councillors weren't involved in that. We supported what was being recommended. Obviously we wanted to make sure that it's resilient and that there is space for as many people as possible to get out when they need to get out. And it's taken, because it's taken longer than we would have liked, it also has meant that the pre-consultation has been more extensive. And the modelling has been checked and double-checked. So I don't think that there is an evidence-based reason to delay it.
Thank you. And Councillor Johansson. What do
Thank
see?
you. So I'm just trying to understand, what is it that you'd like council to do specifically around the wastewater treatment plant and the Port Link?
Those are two questions which I probably can't answer in 10 seconds. With Portlink, I was pointing to a general issue where when you have issues on the residential industrial interface, I want council to take a much stronger position from the get-go in terms of enforcement. And I'm thinking about like the National Steel Yard, for instance, which is also on the residential industrial fringe in our ward. Would like the council to be very staunch with its advocacy for the public. When it comes to the wastewater treatment plant, well, ideally it would happen as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much for coming in. Thanks for a great report. Right, we move on to Te Pātaka o Rakahutu, Banks Peninsula, and Chairperson Lynn and Governance Manager Penelope Goldstone. Great picture, great photo. Morena.
Morena everyone. Beautiful morning this morning. Today I have the pleasure of telling you about the happenings around Banks Peninsula for July. The board received minutes from the reserve committees and the head-to-head walkway working party. They are continuing to do awesome work. We noted a co-option of a local representative to the management structure / strategic plan working group of the Pigeon Bay Reserves Committee. And the group, along with staff, are busy working through options for the future management of Pigeon Bay Camping Ground. As a little aside, our wonderful reserve committees punch above their weight, really. And the work that they do to care for their communities, and I continue to thank them for the work that they do. Our youth development funding is supporting local students to attend national tournaments. We supported 5 Akaroa Area School students towards attendance at the National Area School Tournament in Te Awamutu. And we helped Briar towards attending the New Zealand Māori League Tamariki tournament to be held in Rotorua in September. Congratulations to our young achievers. And remember the drone we gave funding towards for the Akaroa Fire Brigade? Last month, the Honourable Councillor Keown, online, asked a question about the drone's capabilities, and the Fire Brigade replied with this. The drone has a 15-kilometre range. So from Akaroa Beach to Wainui is only 5 kilometres as the crow flies. And depending on the search area, yes, if we had a boat in the water, then the drone would be very useful in locating a lost swimmer, for example. So this sounds like a very useful resource to have out there, and we're grateful for it. Public forums. We heard from an Akaroa resident encouraging the board to visit the notable Takapuniki exhibition at the museum, which highlights our unique heritage and special connection to the Treaty of Waitangi. UCottage has a topic of discussion for the community and the previous boards for decades. In light of recent community feedback and the effects of climate change, the board is reconsidering the previous resolution about the future of UCottage, and there'll be more to report on this in the coming months. Great progress is being made on the Littleton Community Emergency Hub. A small team of volunteers have been working closely with CDEM and the community governance team over the last year. They have run a series of community conversations to support community resilience and emergency preparedness on topics such as tsunami, wildfires, and flooding. As you've heard from me before, there is a groundswell of support from local communities on Banks Peninsula for emergency response planning, and your ongoing support is vital for these communities and their preparedness. It is much appreciated, thank you. And lastly, our Community Services Awards ceremony in July was a wonderful celebration of our outstanding community volunteers. The 10 recipients were involved in such a wide range of activities, from organising local food bank to environmental efforts to helping improve the lives of the elderly and so much more. all giving freely and generously of their own time to help their communities. I really don't know what we would do without these volunteers, and as a board, we really appreciate the opportunity to recognise these special people. Thank you for your time. Is there any questions?
Thank you. It was a really lovely report, and I agree. I don't know where we'd be without the volunteers in our communities and the selflessness and the way they step up to help each other, and they very much help us big time.
I agree.
Are there any questions for? No? All right. Thank you very
Fantastic.
much.
Thanks, team.
See you next time.
Yeah.
Waihora Braden, Cashmere Heathcote, Callum Ward as chairperson and deputy chair Keir Leslie. Good morning.
Morena, tēnā koutou katoa. Yeah, good to see you all again. So we'll get right into it. So our last board meeting was essentially a meeting for funding allocation. We've allocated 481,000 for strengthening communities, and leaving about 90,000 for our discretionary response fund. We've funded a range of local events such as the Hoonhay Festa, Waltham Fair, and the Edible and Sustainable Community Pride Garden Awards, which we'll get to shortly, as well as you can see, some with your neighbours, and other sort of general community activities, communicating, etc. Last year, our board went out to the groups that we fund and asked them to, provide some information to us about, the ways that they are making sure that they're inclusive organisations, for example, for the rainbow community, and their approach to honouring Te Tiriti o Waitangi, and also with questions around, whether they were interested in looking at becoming living wage accredited. So we had a lot of really great responses from all of our groups in different ways to that kaupapa. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add to that in terms of funding here.
Yeah, and I guess it was really great to see how many of our groups have those aspirations and we're really working towards, particularly around being inclusive and supporting Te Tiriti. So that was a really positive process, I think. Yeah. A particularly fun time was the Community Pride Garden and Edible and Sustainable Garden Awards. So this was the first year that our boards had a combined event for those two awards, which was a huge success. We filled up the hall at Opawa Baptist, and there was just a huge range of people, and you can kind of see the diversity in the award winners there. That wasn't everyone. We couldn't manage to wrangle everyone at the end of the ceremony, but it was a great time. Lots of interesting people, and food shared at the end. So it was cool to see the connections being made there amongst gardeners in the community. And we had one person win an award for 30 years of participation in the Community Pride Garden Awards, which was incredibly impressive. And in terms of the advocacy space, obviously the Royal Commission report is something that our board's engaged with previously around Maryland's, but we have another sort of ongoing point of pain with respect to abuse and care and the unmarked graves at Sydenham Cemetery. So this has been something that's it's been a long-standing conversation, and in particular, I want to shout out to Michelle Lomax, who, when she was on the board, did a huge amount of advocacy work on this topic. Her and Tina, did a story earlier back in the day about this that sort of initially brought it to light, to public attention. And also want to shout out to Gareth Wright, who's the council staff member who's been doing a lot of work researching into the history of the graves there, and the people that are buried, mostly people that were former patients at Sunnyside Hospital, who passed away without any money or family to pay for a proper burial. So the board's written to the minister, who's leading the response to the Royal Commission report, asking for a government response that enables us to really properly acknowledge the history of that place and the people that are buried there and uplift their mana. We've had positive feedback from both local MPs, Megan Woods and Tracy McClellan, who are really keen to support with advocacy in Parliament around this issue as well. I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add to that, Keir. Just to say that
since, and I know Michelle and Tina have had the same experience since that story ran a few years back and since the publicity more recently. There's a trickle, but a consistent trickle of people affected by this issue getting in touch and sharing their stories. And they are really heart-rending stories, hearing about family members who they know are buried there, and they feel that sense of, one person said, they felt a real sense of of shame that they haven't been able to acknowledge their family member the way they should have been. So it's something which, while distant in some ways, is also incredibly close and personal in others.
Yeah. So we're sort of awaiting the formal response to that. Yeah. Any
So
questions?
that's a very sombre note to finish on. But look, thank you for doing the work on this and picking this up. It's a really important issue to many, not just the people directly affected, but all of us in society have to take some kind of responsibility for the way vulnerable people are treated sometimes. So I think it's really, really amazing that you're picking this up and pursuing it. So anything we can do to help, we will.
Definitely. Thank you.
Look, the time is up for questions, I'm afraid, unless there's anything burning, but thank you. We'll move on to our next one. Waimaro, Fendleton, Waimari. Michelle. Kia ora.
Good morning, councillors. Just like to pass on apologies from our board chair, who had an unexpected thing happen this morning that he has to deal with, and our deputy chair is currently speaking at a conference in Auckland. So I'm happy to take the report on your agenda as read, and just mention that there is a part A further down on your agenda for the McLean's Island Road realignment, but it was fairly straightforward and the board was supporting the staff recommendations. So we'll save the presentation till next month.
Oh, okay. Thank you. And the McLean's Island Road one was unanimous in the board? Or
Yes.
That's helpful. Thank you. Thank you for making the effort to come to the table and speak on their behalf. Right. Waipuna Horseball Hornby, Riccarton Community Board, Chairperson Marie Polisco and Governance Manager Bailey Peterson. Welcome.
Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Good morning to everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to present the monthly report of the Waipuna Wholesale Hornby Riccarton Community Board. So I have with me our Acting Governance Manager, Bailey Peterson, and I'll start off with the board decisions made under delegation. We have a Part A recommendation to this council meeting about the Shands Road cycle lanes, which is in item 11 of today's agenda. The community board unanimously recommends to accept the office recommendations without change. Now, with regards to other reports of the board, no stopping restrictions were approved by the board along Stedman Road in Hornby and Packard Crescent in Halswell. And again in Halswell, at 301 R. Wigram Road, 2 new road names were approved by the board. And in Riccarton at Newbridge Place, the board approved to reduce the number of mobility parking spaces from 4 to 1 and extend the parking restrictions to a maximum period of 120 minutes on the southern side of Newbridge Place. Actually, the 4 mobility parking spaces were previously required by the Laura Ferguson Trust, which provided housing for people with physical disabilities. Now, with the trust moving out of the area, the 4 mobility parking spaces were no longer required. Now, on the 2024-25 Strengthening Communities Fund, the board approved around 54 funding applications. And same with the discretionary fund and board projects before the board, these were approved. And on the Youth Development Fund allocations, the board supported 3 individuals. On Swimming Activation Fund allocation, we have one there, $1,000 to the Nepal New Zealand Friendship Society of Canterbury Incorporated towards Empower Her weekly swimming sessions for women, and then Off the Ground Fund allocation to the Hornby Community Care Center Trust towards its expanded center engagement project. Now on activities around the board area, the Huritini Student Council is made up of Year 5 and 6 students from 6 Holswell schools. Now, this student council decided to prioritize food safety as their project focus. The students have done research on existing resources in Holswell, including community gardens, food pantries, food banks, and potential partner organizations. As a result, they have chosen to establish food pantries at each school, which is quite amazing. Please stay tuned for updates on their progress. Now, this is something interesting because mental health first aid training I didn't hear before. I'm a volunteer with Civil Defense and I've done psychological first aid training. So this is my first time to hear of mental health first aid training. And this was delivered by Hatohone St. John, participated in by representatives from various community organizations across the board area. We've had feedback from participants, which included, it gives me confidence to deal with someone having or potentially having mental health issues, where in the past I would have run away from the situation. And another feedback was, this course has changed my way of thinking about mental health, wellness, and illness. It has given me some fantastic tools in my kit to continue to support my community and to keep myself safe and well. So I really think it's very interesting first aid training. Now, on Summer with Your Neighbors, applications for funding assistance to hold Summer with Your Neighbors events opened on July 13th this year, and it previously closed on the 11th of August. The board has decided to extend the application for events proposed to be held within the board area until the 31st of March 2025. Events are to be held between the 1st of October 2024 and 30th of April 2025. And that's all from us. Thank you.
Fantastic. I think it's a good idea to extend those application times for neighbours, Summer with Your Neighbours, because sometimes it's just a spontaneous thing. People hear about it and go, well, let's do that. Councillor Johansson, 28 seconds.
Well, yeah, thank you. Just quickly, just looking at the Shands Road cycleway, just because it's not an area that I'm really familiar with, but the design seems very minimal compared to the heavy traffic that potentially uses that road in terms of speed as well. So just wondered if you'd looked at the design and if you're comfortable with it.
Yes, the board fully looked at the design and we discussed it amongst ourselves and we did unanimously support it.
Right.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you for coming in. Nice to see you.
Right, thanks.
So, Waipapa Papanui Innes Central Community Board, Chairperson Emma Norrish and Deputy Chair Simon Britton are here today. Now, I see that you've got two Part A's.
Yes.
So I'm happy to give you a little bit extra time if you need it, if you want to talk to those, because they're a little bit complicated.
Yeah, we'll see how we go. We might not need it. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you today. We'll just be giving you a quick rundown on what's been happening in our board area over the past month, as well as speak to those couple of Part A reports which you have in front of you today. At our July meeting, we approved some no stopping restrictions on Fenchurch Street and Paddington Street in Northcote. These changes came in response to increased on-street parking in the area since the opening of Marion College and Pack and Save just over the other side of Northcote Road. We also made some changes to some no stopping restrictions on Chester Street East, approved some lane names for the development at 235 Gloucester Street, and met some of the local team from the park's in-house maintenance crew.
As the Chair's just noted, we've got two Part A reports on your agenda today. They're both recommendations that Council request staff investigate alcohol bans, one in Edgware Village and one at the northern end of Stanmore Road. The Board has also endorsed the South East Central Neighbourhood Plan and recommended that Council adopts it, and that report will be at your next meeting.
One of our priorities in our board plan is to address the issues that intensification is causing in our area, especially around the provision of necessary infrastructure. We've recently had public forums and deputations on this in relation to the Northcote area, and we're looking forward to seeing the investigative study of the Northcote Road Transport Corridor, which we supported with our Better Off funding.
In community events in the past month, we've had a Matariki event at Phillipstown Community Hub. The hub there The events there at the hub included a hangi which fed 300 people, and it was a large coming together of members of the community as well as the community groups that are involved in that site.
There was another hugely popular Matariki event in the Richmond Community Garden. It was Matariki in the Zone. This was a fantastic event with heaps to do for people of all ages. The hangi was a highlight with close to 500 people being fed by a dedicated group of volunteers. Entertainment was provided by various local groups throughout the afternoon and evening with kapahaka singing and dancing. And those attending were also able to enjoy the Matariki star installations on display. So thanks to all those who contributed to making this such a successful event.
We've had a youth-focused event at the multicultural space in Hagley Park. This was a youth hui in June. And the purpose of this was to gain insights from our young people and those working with youth around recreational needs and how best to facilitate those. And the feedback from the young people emphasised the importance of creating safe and welcoming environments for the success of programs and events. They highlighted the need for familiar foods, activities, languages and faces to foster a sense of belonging, and the ability to express one's culture freely, and for programs to celebrate and understand cultural differences and similarities were deemed crucial. Barriers to participation were also discussed and program ideas suggested, and really just want to express our thanks to staff who were involved in facilitating that and for all the people that attended and participated.
A planting day held at Papanui Bush in June was a great success, with a good group of volunteers continuing the great mahi that has been happening on the site over the last 6 years. It's fantastic to see the first plants that we planted in 2018 doing so well, and to see the area being enjoyed by so many people.
And then linked to that, recently with the assistance of a grant from our board from our Better Off Fund, there's now a 1 kilometre loop connected walkway in Papanui Bush, and noting this is accessible to the public, but it's also immediately adjacent to the Braintree Centre and also the Southern Cancer Centre. We've got a video here, just a few brief words explaining that project a little bit more. And not sure if staff can start that for us.
We got some money from the Three Rivers and we've put a new pathway in. We've now got 1 kilometre pathway through Stacey and also the community board and in council and Phil the Mayor. We've done it.
Okay. Apologies, the audio is not perfect in that one. That is the end of our report.
And yeah, the two-part A's that you've got before you today, we had, you've got the one for Edgware Village and then the one for Northern Stanmore Road. Edgware Village, we had one of the business owners there who came to us speaking on behalf of all the businesses in the area about a rise in antisocial behaviour in the area that they see as attributable to drinking in the area. So they came with some evidence and spoke to us, and so the board supported a 6-month trial of external agencies working in the area, as well as initiating that process for an alcohol ban. And then at our next meeting after that, we had representatives from the Richmond Residents and Business Association come to us with similar problems for the area of Northern Stanmore Road, so that's North Avon Road, just in the whole shopping area south of there. And you'll see in your report that they also presented us with a whole lot of evidence suggesting that there are widespread issues with alcohol consumption and the associated antisocial behaviour in the area. And that area does date back to at least 2021, when they had previously gathered evidence around it as well. So it's having a detrimental effect on the local residents using the area as well as the business owners. So our board had a presentation from policy staff on the process for implementing an alcohol ban, and the board is asking you today to request that staff initiate that process for both Edgware Village and Northern Stanmore Road. Thanks.
Thank you. I think it's fair to say, to inform councillors, that when the Edgware request came to our board meeting, we voted to actually request council to implement a 6-month trial. At our next meeting, we had further advice from the policy team that the council was unable to do that. You have to go through these steps first to comply with the Local Government Act, and so we rescinded that decision, and now we're going ahead with a recommendation for both of these areas to commence the process to endeavour to see if those areas tick those boxes, and or if there's any other external help that can be put into these areas to alleviate the problems. Correct?
That's right.
Yeah. Any other questions? Councillor Johansson.
Yeah, just want to acknowledge the board for funding that Northcote roading transport study, but I was just trying to understand how far does that go back towards the city, and will it look at that Langdons Road, Main North Road, the infamous 9 traffic lights within 1.6k area?
No, the money that we funded is for the section between Main North Road and the railway line. So
Right.
that short
So
section.
is there anything else that council could do to help you deal with the massive traffic problems that you're having in your board's area around that Papanui Main North Road area?
Installation contractors have started this week on the installation of the lights at Langdon's Greers, which is something.
Sorry, I'm just trying to understand. Is there any work going at the higher level, looking at the kind of what's happening in terms of land use development and impacts on traffic? Because it just seems everything's happening ad hoc, and I just wondered, is there anything you think council could do to assist in having a more strategic approach to traffic planning in that area?
I think it's fair to say we have not had any people from the community coming to the board complaining about the traffic there at the moment. I think it's fair to say it's still bedding in, but so long as the lights are phased.
Yes, certainly. We've had feedback around the Northcote QE2 Main North intersection, and there's been substantial changes to the sequencing of the lights there, which is a resource consent obligation associated with the pack and save, and that's certainly impacted flows, and I've seen it improving over time, but there are some constraints there. To an extent, with all full respect to the press, the article about the sets of traffic lights was a bit of a story about nothing. I mean, there's lights there, yes, but there's a reason for them. We've had requests from the public for speed reductions in that corridor, and we need to consider that serving multiple purposes, including being tagged as a future rapid transport route, as well as it's actually mainly residential through there. But also it's a major commercial area, so absolutely there's a lot going on. The Langdon's Greers lights that Emma mentioned, that should take a little bit of pressure off the Papanui or Main North Road end of Langdon's Road as well, because there'll be people heading that direction at the moment because they're having difficulty exiting onto Greers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you next time. Thanks for coming in. How are we going for time? Right, so that ends the committee with Part A's. I have a mover to receive those. Councillor Templeton, seconded by Councillor Peters. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed? That's carried. So that takes us to item 8.